The illusion of inclusion is how in Black America, the American Black community, we've kind of been given this idea that, well, you're here now, you've arrived, you have two legs, 2 feet, you're just like white America, everybody's the same. But we haven't been included in any kind of major way. Integration never really happened. You know, when you look at the zoning laws, we were zoned out of communities, regardless of whether we had jobs, regardless of whether we were teachers or principals or good upstanding people. We were never included. And so that non-inclusion has had consequences in our lives in terms of that's why we're so far behind in terms of wealth. It's not about whether or not we have a culture. There's nothing wrong with us as Black people that inclusion in terms of the wealth of this country wouldn't fix. And we've never been able to have the opportunity to have that or do that. What people don't understand when we talk about redistributing, like we say redistribution of wealth, right? I remember back when Obama got in trouble for saying something as milk toast as that. It was middle of the road, probably right of center president. What you have to understand is that there's always a transfer of wealth. Every time wealth goes into Capitol Hill, it's transferred. It goes in one direction or the other, and people lobby for it. That's why they're there. So when you look at the cost, there's a very specific cost of slavery. There's a cost of redlining. There's a cost of Reconstruction. There's a cost that we bear, and we eat the cost of not being included. And we have to eat that going forward. So all of the failure is baked into our community, the lack of wealth, the lack of upward mobility. And what, the study that Dr. Sandy Darity did with Antonio Moore shows that education doesn't fix it. A job doesn't fix it. Poor white people have more wealth than Black people with a better job. So none of these things fix it. The only way you make us wealthy as Black America, the only way you make us wealthy and fix that is to actually give the money that was taken in the first place. That exclusion has a cost. There's been a cost to that exclusion over time. Destroying Black businesses, having the mob come in and do that. There's a cost. There's a cost to when we try to get power, having Southern whites say, well, no, we're going to just change the rules and not the federal government coming in here to protect us. Everything has a cost. And so what we really need for white America is you have to eat that cost. Like you have to make this sacrifice, and not just in an ethical way where you say, well, you feel that empathy in yourself. No, there has to be a cost in terms of what you're willing to pay in terms of your own life and what you get, because what you get is because of the failure is all over here. So if the failure is all over here with Black America, then of course you want your life. And wanting your life makes you not an ethical person. Wanting that life while we suffer, and we suffer because the failure isn't spread around, that makes you not the ethical person that you probably think you are. I would like for white America to tell me if there's good news. Because so much of this rests on you. And like the realization that this happened, and it didn't just happen for one moment. We had convict leasing in this country well into the 1900s. We talked about the bodies we just found in Texas that were on a convict leasing farm, and the condition of those bodies where they just snatched Black people up off the street to work in these camps. So when you look at that, you have to say that effectively slavery didn't end in this country to the 1900s. And you see where we are. And so my question to white America, in terms of your ethical responsibility, is, are you willing to do what's necessary to give your Black brothers and sisters in this country hope? I think reparations is necessary. There is no way, because see, what people don't understand is timing. So people say, well, you're past that now, right? Well, we really aren't, because our wealth level, when you look at the studies I've mentioned, our wealth level show that we really haven't moved past that. We really can't move because of timing. So all of these people ascended. Even when you look at the New Deal and how Black people and Black men didn't get any of the GI Bill. When you look at that, there was a window, and either you are a part of that window, and your kids are now a part of that window because they're connected to you, or they aren't. And so that window is no longer open. We're headed towards actually like almost a libertarian America, right? In terms of the cuts that we're seeing. So what you have to say is, if we're not in a window that allows Black people to access what was accessed by white people during that era, then how do you make them whole? And the only way you make us whole at this point is to do a reparations movement. Now, we can talk all day about how we do it, but there is no question that wealth has to be given, that we have to do reparations in this country. And we've done it for other groups. It doesn't seem to become a big deal until we talk about it in terms of talking about Black America. I think it's a big deal because it costs white people a lot. because a lot of these other groups were smaller groups. So even though the sin committed against us was much worse, 400 years and much more lasting, and you benefit from it because of all the cost, and you put the toxins and the nuclear plants and everything in our neighborhood because of all the zoning, so that you could have a good neighborhood. So we have an awful neighborhood so that you could have a good neighborhood that we weren't allowed into, and there was no integration. And even when you look at what's happening now, and it's not just the South. You see New York schools say, no, we don't want these black and brown kids in our schools. Even if we show you that this doesn't result in your school losing anything academically, you don't want that cost. And so until white America is willing to eat some of that cost itself and make some of that sacrifice and spread that pain around, I don't know how you do right by Black America. You can't do right by Black America by just having empathy. I wish white America could give me a lot more hope than I have. That's what I would say. The hope that I have for white America is what I have seen with Dr. Cosby. That's the hope that I have. But this is a microcosm. I've seen Dr. Cosby meeting with white people in the Christian faith, evangelicals, reading books about things that they did not understand beforehand. I see them moving in a direction with Empowerment West and what they're doing that I never thought possible. Right, in terms of just like being able to, they've read books on blacks and black radicalism and just educating themselves, because you have to educate yourself to put yourself in that position. And so what you have with white America a lot of the time is you have white Americans who have been in schools that intentionally kind of don't talk about slavery or make slaves into immigrant workers, right? And so I see this kind of re-education as a good thing, but you have to have somebody like Dr. Cosby an American DOS person in a leadership position. So the question I will ask evangelicals is, are you willing to let us lead this conversation in terms of what has to happen? And are you willing to listen? Are you willing to listen, be there, be cooperative, and even be, like I said, be led by us?